Speaking of esports, that kind of transitions into our next topic, which is kind of a continuation of last week's, where we were talking about what does esports look like in 2023, and it seems like this week we're kind of finding that out. So what's been happening over the last week is honestly a ton of layoffs, and not just esports teams in general, but also game publishers and studios. So I'm looking at this article right now that says Riot reportedly making a wave of layoffs in esports, HR, and other departments. And while the concrete number is not available, we don't really know how many layoffs were made. But I have to assume it was probably at least 5% of their workforce, because they have about I think like 4,300 employees.
Okay.
And people look at this and they get really scared for the industry. But for me, like this is not a surprise. I don't think anybody in the esports industry should look at this and be like, oh my God, we're screwed. It's just like what happened was 2020, we had COVID, gaming boomed. 2021, the gaming boom continued. And now 2022, we're kind of pretty much back to normal after post pandemic. And, it's just part of the process of building a company is where you got periods of growth where you're going to scale really hard, right?
Yes.
This is your time to capitalize. This is your time to scale up, increase revenues, increase margins. And then there's going to be time periods where that's not going to happen, and you have to make some decisions on how you want to go about the next kind of vision of your company. And yeah, I don't think it's a big deal. However, the one that kind of scares me the most, and this is probably related more internally and not it's not really affected by external factors, but Microsoft laying off over 10,000 employees was also a big thing. And it wasn't just Microsoft itself. It was also like 343, Bethesda Studios.
Yep.
A lot of game publishers have been laying off companies. And the only reason the Microsoft one concerns me is because Halo Infinite is in a poor position right now.
Yeah.
They're a lot of the team in 343 has been gutted. They're still trying to work on the live service, but it's a scary thing to see Halo, and as prestigious as a brand as it is, kind of falter in a time period where you can't be faltering.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what to think about that. The future of Halo is definitely up in the air. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but
I mean, the Halo is definitely one to keep your eye on. Obviously, Microsoft laying off 10,000 people is slightly more concerning than the Riot layoffs. It's kind of logical that we had a little bit of a boom from some of the relief money and pandemic relief, and then but Riot wanting to sort of do away, at least temporarily, with like recruiters, human resource individuals, support roles, even support roles for the esports teams. Like that kind of makes sense because when there is, when you have money, you want to have people who can find you the best talent. When that money runs out, you can kind of find that you can kind of find that talent yourself, or they've already found it for you in some cases, in which case that you don't necessarily need their services anymore. So it's like in a tech startup or an app startup, you're going to have a lot of engineers at a certain point, and then you're going to realize that you've built everything that you're kind of looking to build. And then you scale back, your engineers by 60, 70, 80%, and you hire a sales team because you need somebody to go out and make the money now after making the product. So natural cycles that businesses have, slightly more concerning with the Microsoft and the 10,000 employees, but there's similar size layoffs coming from your Googles, your Alphabets, Amazons, Salesforce. So people are just kind of cutting across, and that's just something that you see with a recession kind of coming along or looking like maybe a few waves away. So yeah, I think that hopefully not too much of the Microsoft layoffs hit that 343, because I think everybody has been looking for more out of Halo than less out of Halo.
Right.
And I think obviously, like, they had talked about a BR at one point, and I think that's now we're a whole year removed from when that was initially kind of promised, which I think was almost 6 months ago, and that's kind of disappeared. So it'll be interesting to see where we end up. Will we get a Halo BR in 2023? will that be the first thing they do in 2024, or are they just going to try and keep this game going and keep what they have going? Because I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, like World Championships were right when that BR was supposed to be dropping originally, from when it was promised or talked about, from the previous year. It's amazing how fast time goes by with some of these game titles and the leagues, and just, you're keeping up with the Joneses and the events, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, what happened to this thing that we got talked about, 6, 9, 8, 10 months ago?
Right. Yeah. So it's definitely a little concerning from the Microsoft standpoint and from kind of the tech giant standpoint. But I think in the end, publishers are going to be okay. Like, this isn't, again, like you said, business and growth in business happens in peaks and valleys, right? Or peaks and valleys. And so some days or some years you're going to be doing really well for a long time, and then there's going to be other years where, hey, we might need to cut back a little bit. So, it is what it is, but I think it's pretty normal. So, we're also seeing esports orgs lay off. Like Team Liquid did a layoff round, I think last week. 100 Thieves did one as well.
Yep.
And that's just the cost of doing business. And there's nothing really you can do about that besides just kind of wait it out and see where the market kind of takes us. So, yeah. So I think that's that. I think, hopefully in the next 6 months, we should start to see some sort of growth start to return, or that's being optimistic, but hopefully in the next year, we'll start to see like some more growth happen, especially when, the Valorant kind of VCT league starts pumping up again. And, because in February, we'll have the what's it called? The championship, I believe, right?
Yep.
In February, or at the tail end of 2023. So, yep, should be fine. Not too concerned about it. Okay.
Be really interesting to see with the chief creative guy, Joe Staten, heading off from 343, and them talking about, other strategic roles were a part of that layoff period. That's interesting to see, because I think, there's note that Joe was the person who really got the title done, got the Infinite title done by 2020, which was their goal originally. However, the player base, just to leave it on this last note, to just have you think about how you feel about what's going on with Halo. At one point, they were toting 100,000 average players within the launch period, so the first 90 days of the game.
That's pretty good.
Currently, it's at 4,000 daily
That's
players.
not good.
So just to give you an idea of where we're standing with Halo, 95% of the player base have moved off to other game titles. Ooh. So that should, that's just like any good business, you have to reflect the amount of your business to the amount of supply and demand that's going on, and with a 96% reduction in player base,
you got to make some decisions.
You can probably understand why they went and cut a bunch of that department. So hopefully, we pray for you Halo guys out there, and hopefully we'll be having a quick swing around as the season continues this year.
We'll see.